All right, everyone, welcome back to another video. Last time we left off with Japanese advancing in Burma. We're now on to Russians encircle Germans 16th Army at Staria, Russia. My bad. February 24th, 1942. Russian attempt to relieve Leningrad. On February 23rd, the 24th anniversary of the creation of the Red Army, Russian forces launched an offensive on the Central Front, on the same day, the High Command announced the capture of Dorogobush. Dorogobush. We'll go with that. 50 miles east of Smolensk. Further north, where the Russians were striving desperately to break the German ring around Leningrad, Soviet troops on the 24th successfully accomplished the encirclement of the German 16th Army at Staria Russa, 10 miles south of the Lake of Ilmen. After the refusal of the German commander to surrender, the Russians began to attack, in which 2 German infantry divisions and the crack SS Deathheads division were smashed and 12,000 Germans killed. Nevertheless, the enemy, heartened by promise of airborne reinforcements, clung desperately to their position. The pictures show left German infantry waiting in the snow beside their guns in readiness for an attack. We can see here they are. They're getting ready for an attack. Also, if this is the army, I believe, the promised air never comes, and they never get freed from this. And so this entire 16th Army is going to get obliterated, which is really bad for the Germans. It does not get them what they intended. And yeah, these poor men, because of a promise that never was possible and was just being lied to them. Awful. On the right here, Russian sappers clearing a passage through enemy wire. Gotta make sure you have the wire all trimmed up so you can actually, move through it. Because, barbed wire, awful. It'll mess you up real bad. And vehicles, it'll also mess up pretty bad because that wire, it don't break too easy. So it'll get wrapped in things. Tires, it'll pop tires. Even if it's tracks on a tank, it could potentially get caught in the tracks. You don't want that, so it could be pretty bad for you. So I got these sappers. Get rid of it. Curfew imposed on Rangoon, February 25th, 1942. Burmese capital threatened. In view of the proximity of the Japanese forces to Rangoon, a curfew was imposed and a military governor appointed on February 25th in order to prevent looting. On the same day, the RAF and the American Volunteer Group scored a notable success by shooting down 30 Japanese bombers attempting to raid the capital. Meanwhile, in India, the evacuation of part of Chittagong district on the shores of the Bay of Bengal was carried out as a precautionary measure. The pictures show above, right here, natives examining bomb damage in a main Rangoon street following a heavy Japanese air raid. Yeah, and you can just see this. This is just like what we've seen in both the United Kingdom and the Soviet Union, as well as Germany. The bombing damage here is it's appalling, just to see this and see these buildings just reduced to rubble, basically. And then left here, a grief-stricken Burman whose wife has just been killed by a fragment from the Japanese bomb, clutching his little child closely to his side. You can see in that man's face oh boy, if it wants to, there we go. You can see in his face the grief stricken as he holds his little child, be it girl or boy, does not really matter. But yeah, just awful. Awful, awful. Combined attack on the coast of France, February 27th to 28th, 1942. Radio location station wrecked. On the night of February 27th to 28th, the British Army, Navy, and RAF carried out a combined attack on an important German radio location station at Bruneville on the French coast, 12 miles north of Le Havre. Havre? I don't know. Parachute troops dropped by RAF bombers carried out the demolition, despite heavy enemy resistance, and the station was entirely wrecked. Infantry units landed from the sea by light naval forces covered the embarkation of the airborne forces. Heavy casualties were inflicted on the Germans, and a number of prisoners were taken. No British ships or aircraft were lost. The pictures showed British parachute troops about to enter their aircraft. And you can see all the aircraft there. They're getting ready. They're going to go do their mission as they, make sense. And then below, landing barges returning to their base after the raid. Yeah, and you can see these men are like, yeah, we did it. Woohoo! We got rid of the radio location station. Which, we don't usually call it the radio location station. You can kind of tell kind of the age of some of the terms in this, because we would just call it radar. That's just all it is. It's radar. Long-range radar. But it is radio location. I mean, that's what it uses sound to bounce off of things and then give you a feedback of what those things are. So that's what radar is. So it's not wrong. It's just kind of an older way to say it. After the RAF visited the Renault plant in Paris suburbs. March 3rd, 1942. Deadly accuracy of the RAF bombing. After the RAF attack on the Renault factory at Billancourt on the night of March 3rd, the Germans claimed most of the damage had been done to residences. This was disproved shortly after the raid by a remarkable series of photographs, one of which, reproduced above, was smuggled out of France. This shows a tangled mess of grinders and machinery, all that was left of one of the factory's main workshops. In this building, crankshafts, valves, and motors were made. The loss of this factory was a serious blow to the German war production. And yeah, you can see just the obliteration of this factory. Now, and you can see, there are gears, wheels, things like that. So this clearly was a factory. Now, is it possible that the RAF did bomb residences? Yeah, of course. Sometimes when you're bombing, you miss. And they wouldn't intentionally bomb the French. They were allies. They still are allies in some regard. So they're not going to bomb them. But it is possible that they could have missed. Especially on a night raid. Sometimes it's a little harder to see. So it's very possible. But it's also just as possible that the Germans were lying. Because, it would make the British look bad to the world public. Because, well, look, they are attacking their once ally because of all this. These poor civilians, which the Germans had also done. So, yeah. Not much ground to stand on, but it is possible, yes, that the RAF did attack civilians. Maybe on accident, maybe on purpose. Russians captured Yukonov. March 5th, 1942. German supply base captured. On March 5th, Soviet forces under General Golubov recaptured Yukonov, 125 miles east of Smolensk, an important rail center and supply base for the German armies on the central front. The town, which was protected by a formidable double row of fortifications, fell after a fierce struggle lasting several days, during which Soviet troops fought their way through the battered streets and engaged in house-to-house fighting. The pictures show above, right there, a Soviet scouts company, the first to enter the town, advancing cautiously through the ruined streets. And yeah, see, they're all dressed in white, obviously because all the snow, so they're trying to be as invisible as possible. Obviously, yes, you could see their guns potentially, but if they are crawling towards you, it'd be a lot harder to see their guns because they would be hidden underneath them potentially. But yeah, so these would be the first troops to enter, and then the rest of the infantry would follow soon after. And then below, camouflage infantry mopping up. You know, it says camouflage, but these guys are way more camouflaged than these guys are in the snow. I mean, these guys, I guess, you know, they could maybe be camouflaged in like a wooded area or something like that, but those guys are way more like snow camouflage. So, but yeah, and like I said, these are the infantry mopping up what the initial troops would have missed or things like that. And that's going to be the last page for this video. Boston's attack a factory near Paris. March 8th, 1942. Daylight attack on Matford Works. 5 days after the heavy night attack on the Renault factory, a small formation of American-built Boston light bombers carried out a daring low-level daylight attack on Matford Works at Poissy, 10 miles northwest of Paris, which was producing 20 trucks a day for the German army. The picture taken from one of the attacking bombers during the height of the raid shows bombs bursting in the center of the factory. Hits were also scored on a row of parked trucks, which can be seen in the rear. Never before had British bombers penetrated so far into occupied France in daylight. So yeah, you can see the factory completely getting blown up there, crippling the German tank, or the truck production in this factory, obviously. Yeah, destroy as much of their supplies as you can. Makes it almost impossible for them to continue to fight this war. And then they will potentially give up a lot quicker. Which, yeah, the Germans have a lot of problems with that. It also said there were trucks that were blowing up, but here's a river that's getting some bombs dropped in it. That they, once again, like I said, sometimes you would miss bombing, sometimes you just did. That would be one of the examples. But that explosion right here, you kind of see right there. That's probably the parked trucks in the background that they were talking about getting blown up. Hopefully that's all it was, and it wasn't something else. But yeah, well, that's going to do it for this video. If you guys liked the video, leave a like. If you didn't, leave a comment. Tell me what I can improve on. I really appreciate your feedback. And as always, subscribe. It's been helping out the channel. You guys have been doing great. Thank you so much.